Americans can't keep up with the cost of living anymore. The average American simply cannot afford a high quality of life compared to their European counterparts. And with the lack of a social safety net, unlike their European counterparts, things are getting very, very ugly very, very quickly for many, many Americans. But I can show you better than I can tell you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this reaction.
It's incredible how many people are breaking down from the cost of living crisis going on in America. People are sharing testimony after testimony, basically realizing that the pot is boiling and they don't know what to do. They're really struggling. In fact, I've actually received feedback thanking me for sharing these videos because a lot of people have been feeling alone. They think that it's just them, but in reality, it's so many people all around us.
And to her point, she makes a lot of videos structured exactly like this one, where Americans tell their stories about struggling with the conditions in modern America. Anytime you have the ability to create a whole business model predicated on the suffering of your fellow citizens, you know that something is wrong with the country that you're in, plain and simple. I should not be able to make videos like the ones I make, and she should not be able to make videos like the ones she makes nearly as often as we do. But this is America in 2025.
I know I'm not the only adult that sits in their car wondering how they're making the most money they've ever made in their entire life, and it still doesn't seem to be enough. My rent is $2,000 a month, and I live in a townhouse. My car note is $535 a month, and that's on the low end compared to what I see a lot of people pay. My car insurance is $370 between two vehicles.
300 and however many dollars. After 300, I kind of just blanked out. That's incredibly steep. That's incredibly steep for two vehicles. I don't know where her traffic record looks like. I don't know how many tickets or accidents she's accumulated throughout the years, but that's really, really high. And honestly, this is why I always say that one of the biggest levers the US could pull in terms of solving this cost of living crisis is actually developing infrastructure that allows people to go car free. But we know that with the auto manufacturers lobbying American politicians, that's not going to happen within our lifetimes, unfortunately.
And every time I fucking turn around, that shit's going up, and they can't even tell you why, other than that the rates have increased. Fucking why? My HOA just decided to charge me $100 because I left my garbage can sitting out in front of my house for a couple of days because I needed to let it dry after dumping.
If you're from Europe or any country outside of the USA, let me know in the comments if you have HOAs in your European or community, wherever you're from, because that's a big thing in the US, especially in newer neighborhoods, is the homeowners association. I'm not going to go on a complete tangent explaining what it is. Just know that it's completely unnecessary and oftentimes very, very repressive.
It with bleach because there were maggots in there. You rent from these companies and they penny pinch you on every thing that they can. We are being bullied into poverty by these corporations and billionaires. And we have somebody in office gaslighting us in our face, telling us, oh, no, you're not. I don't understand how the families that are living off $15 an hour, like, how are you doing it?
They're not. Nobody in the US is living off of $15 an hour. The most I ever made from an actual job was $11.25 an hour. And the notion of moving out of my parents' house, even with a roommate, was completely off the table. Wasn't even a viable dream to have at the time. Nobody's living off $15 an hour in the US. Not in 2025, they're not.
How do you pay your rent?
They don't.
What do you do when your car breaks down? I don't know, dude. I'm just sitting here. I'm like, I'm blessed compared to a lot of people, and it's still hard.
I truly cannot be the only person in this world that feels like I'm just existing. Y'all, I work. My husband works. And it's like, where's the extra money to go enjoy life itself?
Exactly. This right here is a point that it took me entirely too long to learn. throughout my 20s was that there's no point in working all the time to get money and then not have the time to spend it. But a lot of Americans, to her point, they're working all the time and yet they still don't even have money to spend, even if they had the time to spend it. So it's like you're spending all your time to work just so that you can exist and survive. You're not living life. And when we talk about how Europeans work to live, whereas Americans live to work, this is what that actually looks like in practice.
At this point, I'm only living to work. Like, there is no enjoyment except for to just work. I am ready for that point in my life where I can go to work, but then on my free time, I have all the money to go do all the things I want to do. But for now, it's just working and existing.
How are y'all affording?
And the thing is, a lot of Americans are being sold the dream that if they do that for long enough, then eventually they will have the means to live the lives that they want to live. And what they're quickly realizing is that that is not the case. Perhaps at one point in the past, that was the case. That if you simply worked hard and made good decisions, made responsible financial decisions over a long time horizon, you would reap the fruits of your labor. But for the average person, the average American, not the doctor, not the lawyer, not the engineer, not the software developer or whatever, the average American, that is not true. It's simply not true at this point in time. It's honestly a really, really sad situation to witness, especially from afar. But I'm very grateful to have made this move abroad so that I don't have to deal with all of this
Stuff right now. I feel like we're not talking enough about this. Everything is so freaking expensive, and I don't know what the heck. I know I'm not the only one going through this. I mean, from groceries, clothes, everything is so expensive right now, and it's literally by the grace of God that me and my family are surviving. I can't imagine what it's like for somebody who doesn't make the type of money that I make, and I don't even make a lot of money.
So I've mentioned this point in prior videos like this one, but it's a two-way street. So I believe that people should be rewarded for making good decisions over a long time horizon. But a lot of times, some of these Americans aren't making good decisions. When you talk about not really being able to live life beyond work, but you're driving a car like this. I don't know what type of car this is, but those look like leather seats to me. They look like tan leather seats. Usually you find those in more expensive cars. You have this automatic sunroof. I mean, maybe if you sell that car and get a cheaper one, get a base level used car from 2010, Honda Civic, Toyota Corolla, something like that, maybe that will relieve some of the pressure off of you. Because to her point, she said that she's making pretty decent money. So if you're making good money and you're not living in a place like San Francisco, for example, I mean, again, people still make good decisions and aren't rewarded for them, but you have to make good decisions first.
But like, this is really a struggle. How are we surviving?
I'm not paying federal taxes, and the reason for that is the system is completely broken and is no longer serving normal people. I just have been overwhelmed, honestly. There's so many comments at this point, specifically on TikTok, of people who are doing the same and have done the same for a long time. And I think it's amazing to see everyday people coming together and to feel like we really are going to win.
You're going to come together in prison very soon if you don't start paying those taxes. Now look, I get the sentiment and I agree. I agree that we pay these taxes to the US. I don't pay US taxes anymore because I live abroad. And that's kind of a different discussion for a different day, but I don't have to pay American taxes and foreign taxes for most countries that I visit. But while I understand what he's saying, which is that the tax money doesn't seem to be efficiently spent by the government, I don't think that not paying taxes is the answer, because we already know America has the highest incarceration rate of any developed nation in the world. They're not going to hesitate to put you in jail, especially when you talk about a federal case. It's well known amongst people who have been incarcerated, especially within the federal system, that you're not going to beat the feds. You're not going to beat a Fed case, especially when you're opening up your video saying, I'm not paying federal taxes. I'm not a lawyer, but if I was, I would not advise him to take this strategy. I would advise him to instead just move overseas, like I did, so that he won't have to pay federal taxes and he can reclaim his quality of life without going to prison.
We're gonna win.
Listen, if you still want to come to America because you believe in the American dream, let me tell you something. That dream died like 30 plus years ago, and now we're living in a dream that involves paying $10 for a dozen of shitty fucking eggs, paying $2,000 a month.
$10? How much do a dozen eggs cost where you're from? Let me know in the comments. $10.
For an apartment in the ghetto that's about 700 square feet and it has no walls. And then if you want to go to university here, you're looking at around $100,000 for a 4-year education. That's on the low end. But in those 4 years, you might get shot because everyone seems to want to shoot each other for some ungodly reason. Then
Honestly, I truly believe, and I know I always get passionate when I talk about this. I promise I'm not going to go on a rant, but the education system, the higher education system in particular, student loans, that might be America's biggest problem. In terms of just crippling people for their whole adult lives, that might be the single greatest issue. It's the fact that in order to make a lot of money, you have to spend so much more. And this is what people don't understand when they say that, oh, well, Americans earn more on average. In order for them to earn more, they have to spend way more. I'm talking about 20, 30x what a European would spend on a similar, or rather, a higher quality, higher education. They're not making 20 or 30 times more than a European for that same role. I can assure you that. So people need to take that into account when dropping those types of comments in my comment section.
you're going to graduate thinking, oh, I graduated, I have a degree now, I'm going to get a good job. Your good job is going to pay you about $40,000 starting off, maybe, and then they're going to say you're going to work 40 hours a week. When in reality, you're going to be working about 50 plus hours a week because they're going to guilt trip you in by saying, we're a family, we're a team, we help each other. And they're not going to pay you overtime for that because why would they? If they get your help for free, why would they pay you for that, okay?
In Europe, you have the right to disconnect, a foreign concept to many Americans.
Then there's no work-life balance. That company you're working for now doesn't want to give you vacation days until like maybe your second year working there, and those vacation days are maybe 4 days out of the whole entire year. That includes holidays, all right? Then if you're sick, too bad, you still have to come to work, okay? Then if you want to buy groceries, your groceries are going to be your whole entire paycheck because no one can afford to eat here anymore. Got it? I go to the grocery store for 4 things, it's like $50.
All right, I gotta ask y'all something.
She basically covered it. She covered it. America is a scam. It's a trap. It's literally just a trap. It's a hamster wheel. And I'm very grateful. I know I just mentioned college education and how much of a scam that is in and of itself, but I'm very grateful that I dropped out. That's one thing. There are a lot of decisions I've made throughout my 20s that I look back and I'm like, man, what if I had done that differently? That's not one of them. I do not regret having dropped out of college, because had I not dropped out of college at 25 years old, I would have had probably, $100,000 worth of debt. About $100,000 worth of debt, depending on which college I attended and if I wanted to pursue my master's degree, things of that nature. It would have been bad. It would have been really bad. Today, I have $0 in debt.
Real quick. And I'm in a parking lot, okay? I'm not TikToking and driving. My sunglasses are, I can't even see out of this. Anyway, I got a question. I am in my early 30s, okay? My husband and I, we make good money. We're doing just fine. I've talked about how we live in a 1994 double wide and don't have a huge mortgage that we can't handle, all of that. My question is, there are so many
women families around my age, especially like in my town. I'm sure it happens other places as well, but it's like the husband will have a decent job, right? I'm sure making fine money. The mom will either like stay at home or, have a decent job, maybe like a teacher or, a nurse, like a good job. But they're both driving brand new vehicles. I'm not talking about the base model like I got, okay? They're in like the souped up versions of the vehicles, and they have like the brand new, custom built homes with the granite and the marble and the, I don't know, whatever the nice flooring is.
So I already see where she's going with this. My answer to her question is some people just have a higher tolerance for debt. And I can imagine if you come out of school with $100,000 or $150,000 worth of student loans, you might be thinking, well, I'm already cooked anyways. I might as well just go into more debt to live the life I want. And then on top of that, there's the emotional component of feeling like you need to justify the debt that you're in by getting a lifestyle that you subconsciously promised yourself when you went into the debt in the first place. Whole different can of worms there. But some people are just more comfortable with living above their means and going into debt to do so. And I know this because I used to be one of those people. There was a point in time when I saw a few checks that were higher than I was accustomed to getting from YouTube, probably in the neighborhood of $5,000 or $6,000 per month. Immediately, within that same year, I went and got a new apartment. Well, I say new apartment. It was new to me, but it was a nice apartment. Definitely much nicer than any 21-year-old needs. I got a brand new BMW. I leased it with, I think, no money down actually, $719 a month. I bought some designer clothes, some jewelry. I remember I went to the jewelry store and got on a payment plan, $100 a month for 30 months. Ridiculous. All that stuff is gone now. I got rid of all of it. I learned my lesson. That was the most stressful year of my whole entire life. The most stressful year, bar none. It literally altered my neural pathways. I don't think and see life the same way after that experience. Some people, maybe they're just wired differently and they can tolerate that for 20, 30 years without thinking about retirement or if something goes wrong unexpectedly. I'm just not one of those people, and evidently neither is she.
Okay, they've got that. They've got 1 or 2 kids. They're just gallivanting all over the place, everywhere. And I'm trying to figure out, are you just living in debt? Or are you, I don't know, somehow managing paycheck to paycheck? Or are your parents helping you out? Like, if you're one of those people that I'm talking about, I mean, absolute no disrespect. I'm just trying to figure out how you can live that way.
Parental help can make a very big difference, by the way. I say that like you didn't already know that, but if you think about a college education, for example, the difference between coming out of college with a degree but $100,000 in student loan debt and coming out of college with a degree and no debt at all, that is a very big difference. You have at least a 10 to 15 year head start on the person who has the student loan debt. So that probably plays a pretty big role as well.
And I mean this in the nicest way possible. I'm almost a little jealous. I just, as a normal person who does not like to spend a lot of money, I'm genuinely like asking how y'all are making this work.
Yes, most of the time when you see people living the high life, a lot of them are in debt. They are pretty much paycheck to paycheck. It's just debt on debt. Everything has a payment. It's not because they can necessarily afford it. It's because they just continue to rack up the debt. And if you watch this channel, you know I always talk about not being in debt, try and get out of debt as much as possible. And it's funny, I actually received a few comments the other day saying that I'm driving a new luxury vehicle, and what am I talking about? Well, this vehicle is...
Now look, I know more about cars than the average person, but I'm not a car expert. This doesn't look like a new luxury vehicle to me at all. Looks like a nice, well-kept vehicle. She looks like she keeps it pretty clean and all that, but this doesn't scream opulence.
Is a 2008, so it's not new, and it's definitely not luxury anything. I mean, it's just your basic vehicle. Parts of it is falling apart, so definitely nothing luxury here. We like to buy old used cars, and we do just fine with them. We don't have many issues. If there is an issue, we'll take care of it, but otherwise it's done very well for us. And speaking of vehicles, here's another area where inflation is hitting hard.
I don't know if this is inflation or tariffs or a combination of the two.
Okay, so before he says what he's gonna say, I'm looking at the reflection in his sunglasses. He's in a Tesla, looks like a Model S? A Model S or a Model X for sure. So let's just keep that in mind as we watch this video.
But about 3 or 4 months ago, I got quoted about, let's just call it $500 for a set of front tires for my car. At the time, I didn't need the tires. Like, I had a little bit of tread left. I'm like, let me just run out what I've got and then I'll replace the tires. So knowing that it was going to be about $500 to replace them. How about today? I go and I'm like, okay, it's time to get the tires. I show up. I'm expecting, $500, maybe a little bit more based on everything that's going on. How about the new quote? Today's price was $980.
$980? $980. Okay, I take back everything I said. While it is still true that him having a Tesla is not helping the maintenance cost of his car, there's no reason why any service should be increasing by that much in that time frame. Period. That's crazy. That is so crazy. And again, if Americans did not need cars, that 980 wouldn't exist for many of them. The 500 wouldn't have existed for many of them, let alone the 300 insurance that the first woman was talking about. Don't think I forgot about that. Cars are honestly one of the biggest financial black holes that there are. And unfortunately, in the USA, you have to have one.
For 2 tires. And no, these aren't the cheapest tires on the planet, even in not this economic whatever is going on. But I will say that the last time that I bought these tires, I got both tires for $300. Folks, this is not sustainable. Like,
if you're from Europe, comment below how much you spent to replace your tires the last time you did it.
the price of stuff in America, how long does this go on before the bubble just pops? Like, I'm okay financially, and this is like straining me. What are people doing that are struggling already, and they need to put tires on their car, something just that normal, and it's double or triple the price?
Yeah, those are the people that we see moving into their cars and becoming homeless, living under bridges like we've seen in some of the other videos I've reacted to recently. And those are also the people that Trump basically launched a war against with his executive order to outlaw homelessness. America, land of the free, right?
I mean, never mind that the cost of living when it comes to like rent and mortgages and groceries is high, but man, my mind is blown. My mind is blown. I've seen a lot of things that have surprised me when it comes to the cost of stuff, but this tire situation, wow.
I've noticed people don't like to talk about money nowadays, or even back in the day, it's a very taboo topic to talk about. But I think we need to start normalizing talking about it, and especially now with everything being so expensive. I'm going to break down the bills that I have. I'm making more money than I've ever made in my adult life right now. And this is the first time that I've had to budget.
So, well, first of all, before I say what I was going to say, every adult should have some kind of budget or some understanding of where their money is going. That's something I got on very early on. So when I went and leased that BMW from the dealership, I saw the money leaving my account. So at least I wasn't confused as to where my money was going. I knew why I was going broke. A lot of Americans don't even know that much. But she mentioned that, and somebody else earlier in the video mentioned that this is the most money they've been making in their adult life. But that's not actually true. Because if inflation is outpacing wages, then sure, you might be making more on paper, but functionally, you're making less. Because the cost of living in the US is increasing faster than your wages are. So this is why saving money isn't necessarily the best idea if you're going to be in the US, or really for a lot of places, but especially in the US, is because your money in your savings account is literally just losing value every single year, year over year.
And you can say you're spoiled, whatever. I've just done well, and my husband does well. We don't live in a grandiose house. We live in a nice house. Yes, we live in a very nice city. Yes. But let's break down some of the bills. Let's just be completely transparent. So, first bill is the mortgage. My mortgage is almost $3,300 a month.
$3,300 a month?
The second bill, my biggest bill, is my daughter's school. That's almost $24,000 a year. The third biggest...
Okay, $24,000. So, is this daycare? She said school. So I'm going to assume that she means primary school or elementary school, as we call it in the US. So she's going to private school. You said you live in a good city, but the good city clearly doesn't have good schools, or you would have enrolled her in a public school. So why are you spending $3,300 on a mortgage in a city where you're having to send your daughter to private school? Make that make sense to me. Again, it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street. This right here, I'm gonna let her finish. I'm gonna let her finish because she might make me eat my words or whatever, but this seems like poor financial acumen. But again, I don't know her whole situation. I don't know the full context. I'm just going based on the information she's giving. Am I wrong in this assessment? Let me know in the comments.
This bill would be my utility bill. Apparently, we had a toilet running, and so last month our water bill, I think I made a video about it, was $514. So I had to pay that. They wouldn't do anything about it. They said the water had to go somewhere. We had somebody come out and check for any type of leak. There was no leak. We were forced to pay that on top of the regular water bill, which is usually $90 a month. Then you have your electricity bill, and that's usually around $130 a month. Then you have car payments. My husband's car is paid off, and my car now, my new one that I got, is about $300 a month, which is not a lot, I know. But then you have insurance. Our insurance is about $300 every single month. And what else? Extracurricular activities for my daughter.
$300 a month for insurance. For what it's worth, on my BMW, I want to say my insurance was around $220 a month. And that's for a car that retails at, I think, $50,000, something like that. So $300, that's a lot for insurance. Prices have really gone through the roof since I left. That's crazy.
A couple $100s a month. Our grocery bill, we don't do like large hauls. We go like every couple days and get stuff, and I never had to budget it. We would just always go and buy it. And I broke it down this month, and we spend about $800 a month on groceries because we don't eat out and we make everything at home. And then
This is what I mean. A lot of Europeans don't understand that in the US, cooking for yourself oftentimes isn't necessarily the cheapest option like it is in Europe. So this is why you see the most impoverished areas in the US also having the highest obesity rates. It's not a coincidence. It's because the cheapest way to eat is to either eat processed foods. Think about your ramen that you just boil in the hot water and it has a bunch of extra sodium in it that will probably shorten your lifespan. Think about the McDonald's dollar menu, things of that nature. That's what poor people are eating more often than not.
we obviously have my housekeeper every week. That's $150 a month.
Wait,
And then we obviously have my housekeeper every week. That's
housekeeper. See, this is what I mean. This is what I mean. The cost of living is crazy, but you're not doing yourself any favors by having a housekeeper.
$150 a month. So that's what? $600 a month. And then my dog gets groomed every 6 weeks. That's another $100. And that's not even including any of the extra things like shopping, whatever. And I don't even buy clothes full price. I thrift most things. And I don't get my nails done. I don't get my hair done. I don't do spray tan. I don't do lashes. Yes, I do Botox. That's it.
I'm trying. I'm really trying to feel sorry for her, but housekeepers, private schools, Botox. I mean, am I a bad person? Just, I don't know. Let me know in the comments.
I don't buy makeup. All my makeup is sent to me for free. Yes. And I don't know how families are dealing with the cost of living. It is scary. And like I said, my husband and I do well. I'm not going to go into exactly how much we make because I think that's a little bit too much. But those are our bills. And this is the first month that, we are going to be like paycheck to paycheck. And I've never been like that my entire life. And I'm worried. I'm legitimately worried. Usually everything just gets automatically taken out of our account on automatic payment.
Yeah, cancel the automatic payments and downgrade your lifestyle. And what you'll find is that your overall happiness level will probably stay right around the same. In fact, it'll go up because you'll have more disposable income, which you can then stash away to eventually move to another country where you can then actually have a higher quality of life.
This time, I'm like looking at my account and it's going to be close by the end of the month. And then credit cards, I put everything on credit cards, but I always pay them off in full at the end of the month. I will not pay a dime of interest. But this month, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to. Depends on how big my commission check's going to be. And I never had to live like this before. I don't get it.
So if she's using her credit card for everything, the likelihood, based on my understanding and my experience, is that she should have credit card reward points built up. So maybe that could help her through this emergency. And I say emergency with air quotes, implied air quotes, because I mean, I think they're going to be fine. I think they'll be all right. But it is good that this video includes some higher earners to show that it's not just people who have low incomes. Now Americans who went and got the degrees in engineering and law and medicine, they're feeling the squeeze too. So if they're feeling the squeeze, you can fill in the rest with your imagination in terms of the average American who doesn't have a housekeeper or who isn't putting their daughter in private school.
My husband and I are both making more money than we've ever made. Why? I don't know how. It freaks me out to think about how other families live. Like, should I just move? Should we move to like West Virginia and just get like a nice big house?
No, No, don't move to West Virginia. Move to Thailand, move to Albania, move to the Netherlands. If your job is in demand, you could probably earn around the same amount of money that you're making right now in a place like Switzerland and have a much higher quality of life for the same amount of money. I think more Americans just need to consider that there is a world outside of the US that will provide them with the higher quality of life, especially if you're a high earner. Because if you're a high earner, the likelihood is that your job is in demand in many, many places. That's why you're making so much money.
And all our expenses would be like lowered. Oh, property tax, $12,000 a year. You guys, it goes on and on and on and on and on. And I'm nervous this month.
You know, time is short and things are getting only tougher and tougher by the day. While you can work on getting out of any debt that you have, get rid of the high car payments, get rid of credit card bills, try to lower your expenses as much as possible, and don't get into any new debt. If you can't afford it now with the cash that you have, just forget about it. Don't get it. Find a way to make do if possible. And really, one of the most powerful things that people can still do today is basically like it always has been. It's to cut down on expenses and find a way to increase income.
Exactly. I agree 100% with her sentiment there. I think the biggest issue is that a lot of Americans are prideful. And again, it kind of goes back to that emotional mechanism where you feel like you deserve to live a certain type of lifestyle because you work so many hours or because you paid so much money for college. So it can make downgrading very psychologically difficult. I know this from firsthand experience. I went through it myself, and I did it on a public stage on YouTube where I had people telling me every day that I fell off and, man, what happened to you? You used to inspire me and things like that. I had to see stuff like that every day, but I knew that on the other side of that was this right here, the reality that I'm living in now. I think a lot of Americans are too myopic to see the other side of their friends giving them those sideways glances because they pulled up in a different car. And until Americans can detach from that part of their psyches, you can give all the advice you want. And again, she was giving really, really good advice in terms of getting out of debt and downgrading the lifestyle. And I would add to that, moving abroad. Until people, Americans specifically, can detach from that part of their psyches, I don't see an end in sight to those kinds of videos.